everyone, Jesse here with another one of my outdoor videos, and today I've got a pretty fun thing to chat about. It involves my favorite things to talk about: spam, email, and bootstrap businesses. And it involves something that happened to one of my own customers. So, this isn't a theory video. This is me talking about something that happened actually last week that we were lucky enough that a customer actually spoke about. And I didn't know they were going to talk about this, but I was listening to the podcast on the weekend, and I thought it might be fun to listen to this episode together. So, what is this episode? Well, this podcast is Startup to Last by Tyler and Rick. Tyler runs a bootstrap business, which some of you guys may know, which is Annoying CRM. It's a bootstrapped business. It's been around for I think over a decade, and it's super successful. And with those guys, they talk every week, but then this week I saw their title was Attack of the Spam Bots. And I was like, oh my God, he's talking about something that happened to him last week, which I was involved in. And I gotta listen to this episode. And so we're gonna listen together from 44 minutes and 22 seconds. Now, a couple of minutes before that, Tyler talks about the attack, and basically the attack is this. Someone signed up to Less Annoying CRM. They then were able to invite people into the account, but what Less Annoying CRM did was they didn't validate the first name, and so this attacker basically filled the first name with call this phone number to refund your FedEx order or something like that, right? And so let's say the subject of the email would be hey, call this number, blah, 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 to refund your FedEx order, just basically spam. And this is a very common attack vector. And I think most companies are pretty vulnerable to this because no one really thinks that it's going to get abused. But currently, I think this is happening at least with our customers, maybe once a week. And you really got to lock this down. Bento can protect customers from it, but you may not be using an email platform that does. So that's the attack that happened to him. But what I wanted to focus on is his interaction with Bento as that attack was happening. So I can tell you what we're doing in the background to give him this experience that he was pretty blown away with. Because it may give you ideas on AI or stuff you can do with your app using AI and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, let's listen to the podcast. Let me quickly record first so I can sync it up, and let's press play.
Side story here. We use two email providers. We use Mailgun as our transactional email provider. So every email sent from our code goes to the Mailgun API, and then Mailgun sends the email. And then we use Bento for our kind of marketing drip email automation stuff. So every time a user signs up, we push them into Bento, and then that triggers a drip campaign, assuming they didn't opt out of it in Bento. Bento is great. I bet a bunch of our listeners are familiar with them and know of Jesse, their founder. Bento detected this immediately, locked down our account, not in a hostile way. They were doing it for our benefit. They're we don't want you to hurt your sender reputation. Sent us an email from an AI bot saying what happened. I replied to the bot explaining what happened, and the bot responded with the most helpful email I've ever gotten. It was here are 15 different things you can do to mitigate. Just very clearly, they're ready for this. They have perfect content put together. I was so impressed by this. And we had already blocked the IP addresses and stuff, but our whole response strategy was based off what this bot emailed me from Bento.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Made me feel pretty inadequate about how we're using AI right now. Ultimately, I think it gave me 15 ideas. I think only really one core thing made the difference, which is we already knew not to put too much dynamic information in an email. If you let a user sign up and control what the invite message says, for example, of course, they're going to fill that with spam. But I don't want to not put the person's name in there, because just saying someone invited you to Less Annoying CRM that's going to look even worse to real users, right? So before I got this email from Bento, I was okay, we have to detect phone numbers. We have to detect email addresses. We have to detect websites. We have to strip all that stuff out. They're still going to figure out ways around it. And Bento was just only include letters and spaces, and limited to 30 characters. Or I don't know if it said 30. Maybe I made up the number 30. But it's like you can't cram a malicious scam message within those constraints. So if someone's name is like Rick456, it would just say, hey, somebody, Rick invited you to Less Annoying CRM. The 456 just gets stripped out. Anything that's not a space or a letter gets stripped out. And it's short enough that you can't spell out like, you need to call us at, spelling out the number or any other type kind of workaround. So that was the main thing we did. Can't say that it worked. We'd already blocked them. We'd already stopped the attack. But I feel like there's much less reason for someone to try this against us in the future.
Good. Scary. Yeah. It's amazing how narrow of an opportunity this was, but how quickly and viciously it was exploited. And then you still need to have the function. It's great. Seems like a great AI attack use case, and then also a great AI defense use case.
Yeah, what I feel.
Let's stop there and now talk about what went on there. So, in Bento, we've got a whole bunch of different things to detect when bad stuff is going on. In this case, Tyler tripped up our list bombing notification. So, basically, very regularly, we're checking for anomalies. And in some cases, if people are using Bento supplied forms, we're rate limiting those forms. But because Tyler was sending data through our API, we can't really rate limit those because we're just kind of ingesting it. So in Tyler's case, what we detected was that the amount of people that were created in the last 24 hours had far exceeded basically their average for the last 90 days. In a way that we've basically never seen in their account. When that happens, we trip a list bombing flag on their account. That then notifies every admin on the account, and basically, what that does, the code basically sends an event to every admin into our own Bento account. So, list bombing anomaly detected, send an event, that event goes into Bento, it then triggers a flow. That flow then sends a static email to all the admins. That email I'll put up somewhere here. And the email basically just says, hey, you are getting list bombed. This is what it is. Can you please go investigate? And if you deem it's a false positive, which it can be, it's pretty rare that it is, but it can be, just go into your account, press a button, and then clear the notification yourself. We do this instead of a full account ban, which other platforms do. Other platforms have booleans where they're basically you're either good or you're bad. With Bento, we're a little bit more empathetic because you're getting attacked, you don't need to then be completely shut out of your account. So we throttle your account and you can unthrottle it yourself if you're doing kind of good stuff. Then what happens is that static email went to Tyler. Tyler then replied, oh, I'm getting attacked. That went into Bento Chat, which is our own help desk solution. And you can use things like Intercom or Kin or whatever. But what's crucial here is in Bento Chat, we've got agents. And agents will reply instantly when a message comes in, right? So it's not like Help Scout where a message comes in and it drafts something for a human. In this, Tyler needed support instantly. And I think at the time I was asleep and Anya on the support team was actually on a flight somewhere. And so she was actually away. And so this is why we have AI. So these instant replies can go to our customers, especially when they're pretty stressed. And so Tyler emails in, our agent then does a whole bunch of tool calls to work out what docs it needs to then write a great email. And that's basically what happened here. Tyler mentions list bombing attacks. Our agent finds our guides that we had written on list bombing, which has a whole bunch of recommendations, compiles an email, and then emailed that to Tyler. And then Tyler basically goes, cool, got it, and then implements the fix. That agent response is not templated. It was generated on the fly using, I think, just the latest GPT models. And yeah, that's the loop. That's kind of the agent loop here. It's static email, reply, and then there's a back and forth there and a conversation. And then I think when I woke up, I then replied and chatted to Tyler and double checked on his account and all that kind of good stuff. The cool thing in Tyler's case was that whilst Mailgun, the tool that he was using, sent out all those emails, Bento actually detected all the spam in the first names, and we blocked all those. So his Bento account was basically completely clear from any reputation damage and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, that loop of send a static email, get a reply, have some back and forth to try and get a desired outcome is something that I kind of do quite a lot in Bento. We also do this kind of loop in our approval process. So in Bento, when you sign up, we send an event called created an account. That will then trigger an approval email, because every account in Bento needs to be approved. That sends a static email to the customer. The customer then replies to that, and then our agent does this back and forward again, trying to get them to the solution, which is provide us as much information about your account so we can get you approved as quick as possible. And it does have some tool calls to approve account, but usually we do them all manually still. But prior to that, we were doing so much manual back and forth that it could take a few days to get enough information to approve an account. Whereas now, it's basically we approve accounts as fast as we can because all this back and forth is automated. So I just thought this was like a really interesting use case using AI and also using like old school tools, just marketing automation and sending templated emails. To kind of create this really nice experience where the customer's happy, I'm happy, everything's getting resolved a lot faster. And yeah, it's just something that we implemented that Tyler obviously liked. And so let's finish this section, and then I'll wrap up the video.
What I feel very grateful for is that it happened during business hours, because the reason we noticed it happening was that the people getting spammed responded saying, no, don't charge me. And so we immediately were like, wait, something's going on. We found it and stopped it almost immediately, but still 6,000 emails went out. If this had happened overnight, they could have potentially just blacklisted our email domain forever.
Purgatory.
Kind of scary.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Actually, let's talk about that. So what is the risk in this case of blacklisting? So yes, you can get blacklisted, but generally, if you deal with this really quickly, it's not going to be like a permanent thing. So you're not going to get blacklisted forever, like Tyler was saying. Gmail will generally flag you, and it will say things like, it'll start bouncing all your emails, which is very annoying. But it may start bouncing your emails and flagging your DKIM or your SPF record. Usually in these cases, it's usually your DKIM attached to whatever subdomain or domain you're sending on, which is like another reason to kind of split out your sending domains so that your invites are coming from account.example.com. And then if you are flagged for DKIM stuff, then Gmail's just going to flag that subdomain. So that's like one of the reasons you should actually split things out. But then other providers, Yahoo and Outlook, generally will start just like throttling you for 24 hours. Gmail will probably throttle you for about 24 hours. And as long as like you're only sending under like in single digit thousands, it's probably not going to be apocalyptic. But if you send over that because like, I don't know, this is like one of those cases where it's like you hope your app crashes because it's getting spammed so hard. But if you've got like some serverless invite thing where someone's like literally just sent 1 million emails without getting rate limited, then yeah, you're probably going to end up on like Spam House or another block list. And with that, you're going to have to manually try and get yourself removed. For them, if you detail them what the attack was and what you've done to mitigate it, then you'll get removed pretty quickly. They're like kind of pretty nice to people that were attacked. They just really hate spammers, and you're not a spammer if you're a good actor. So yeah, that's just like a note on blacklist. It's generally not permanent. It's usually an issue for 24 hours, and then after 24 hours, you're mostly okay. So.
Yeah. There's also more mitigation we could do. This is another thing I'm struggling with, is like how much should we be trying to prevent? Like we definitely made ourselves a harder target than before, but if someone really wanted to try, there's probably still openings they could find. So like,
okay, Tyler, you shouldn't have mentioned that. But yeah, so a general tip with this is that for over a decade, we've been told that we should always personalize our emails. The truth is that if you actually have a look at like the top senders, a lot of them don't, like, look at Amazon, right? You'll start noticing that, and I think Amazon did this for a few reasons, but you'll start noticing that a lot of the larger providers actually don't put PII, like personal identification or personal information, in their emails themselves, and will try and kind of like dull them out as much as possible. And so yes, personalization does help. Yes, it does relate to better emails, but in general, you only want to personalize if you have to personalize. And especially with these types of things, account-based emails, you can keep them generally pretty vague. You can say things like, somebody has invited you into an, whatever account, and when they click the link and they go to your website, then show who actually like invited them in. Because yeah, you don't want to put like people's addresses, their phone numbers, or any of that kind of stuff inside emails. And first name and last name is okay, as long as you're validating that the information that people are typing in is kind of real, So basic fixes, like was already spoken about, just use letters for first name and last name. And for company, just restrict the character length, make sure people can't put URLs in there. Just think, you can have numbers, but don't put too many numbers in there. Because that phone number abuse thing is like happening quite a lot recently. So yeah, anyway, that's just a couple of tips. Don't personalize everything. You don't have to personalize everything.
I don't know. We're 16 years in. It's happened once. Should we worry about this? I don't know.
I think it's going to happen more and more as people leverage AI to identify these. I don't think some human being found that loophole. I think that was probably AI.
I think this is actually a pretty common one.
Really?
Like, I mean, that Bento had an email ready to go about this exact thing.
Okay, we didn't have an email ready to go. We had docs. And then our agent referenced those docs to tailor our answer specific to Tyler. That's kind of like the important nuance here. We didn't have a template for list bombing. We had, docs that covers kind of in depth on how to deal with these kind of situations.
I don't think the AI, it did not look like the AI made up this concept and figured it out. I think they were like, when this happens, send this email to this customer.
Yeah.
That's my impression.
Oof. It makes
There's
me nervous.
even a term for it.
Yeah,
I forget.
I get nervous about this because I would not know what to do to solve it. I'd probably call you.
I mean, that's why I'm involved with Leg Up Health, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it could happen to Leg Up for sure. I assume we send welcome emails when someone signs up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're learning how to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
What else is on your mind? All right. So that's basically like the podcast episode. So to kind of summarize it, in Bento, I kind of currently use a whole bunch of things, old school static stuff, a cron script that checks everyone's account on the hour, every hour. I then use Bento to send or trigger an automation, a workflow in Bento to send out static emails. Then, once someone engages with those static emails, I have an agent go back and forth with them to kind of resolve whatever issue it is. And that agent is always referencing docs and documentation to supply very good answers to the customer. And if the agent doesn't, and this is actually very important, if the agent doesn't know how to answer it, it'll escalate it to a human and then a human will respond. And that's kind of like this loop that we have going in customer support. And we do that in a whole bunch of areas: security, approval, and kind of even just like life cycle stuff as well, right? I think I've got an email where we email someone about imports, and if someone goes, oh, how do I do an import? The agent grabs all the docs and talks to them and walks them through it. And so, yeah, this is how you combine old school static emails with AI to kind of create these really cool experiences. I hope this was like an interesting video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.